Hi, guys, and welcome back to Interacts Creator Stories podcast. As always, so excited to have you here. I'm your host, Jasmine Solana, and with me today, I do have Melissa Litchfield. Melissa, thank you so much for hopping on with us and being on our show.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Good, awesome, because I'm excited to have you here and to give you guys a little bit of a background on who Melissa is. She's a 33-year-old Southern California native, currently living in Savannah, Georgia. For the past 7 years, she's been helping online entrepreneurs market themselves online with paid and organic traffic. She owns Litchfield Media Co., a digital advertising company that helps small businesses and entrepreneurs skyrocket their impact and revenue with paid traffic. So, Melissa, tell us a little bit more about that. What do you do, who your customers are, and then take us back to the beginning and how you got started in all of this.
Yeah, so Litchfield Media is a digital advertising company. We work primarily with online entrepreneurs. We specialize in evergreen funnels, so evergreen webinar funnels. SLO funnels is kind of like a low ticket offer type of funnel. We do quiz funnels too, which we're going to probably chat about today too. And then let me think. Am I missing anything else? Lead gen. So lots of lead gen, different various like avenues of growing your list through like lead magnets, quizzes, and then webinars are like huge as well with my clients. So most of them have a digital product, service, group program that we're just running paid traffic to in order to scale their business, increase revenue, and grow their email list. And then I'll take it back to the beginning, I guess. So I actually don't have a background in marketing. Ironically, I went to school for criminology, was like my undergrad degree. And then I decided I was like, all right, I'm not going to be like a lawyer or a police officer. So I'm going to go into like health or like something health related. So I thought like public health was like the route to go. I used to live in New Orleans. So I worked downtown. That was like my first like big girl's job, like post, getting my master's degree. And I was just like so unhappy, right? Like I was doing lots of like health policy, like boring stuff in the office and like lots of meetings that were just, unnecessary, but I felt like I truly wasn't making a difference. So I kind of dabbled into like the health and fitness world. That's really where I kind of like opened my eyes and up into like advertising and marketing yourself online. So that's kind of how like I dabbled into that world and actually got pregnant with my daughter in 2017 and was a stay-at-home mom for like a year and a half. And then I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm ready to go back to work. So I actually had a side hustle, like a consulting business. I didn't really know this at the time, but like a few brands, like a baby brand, reached out to me and they wanted me to basically like partner with them. And I became like their marketing and Facebook ads person. So that's kind of how like my business started. But yeah, I also used to work at an agency. So after that, I was like, all right, I want something stable. Let me just go back to the nine to five thing. But I found a remote job. So I was excited about that. And then I just kind of got the courage finally. I think just like over time, as you grow older, you just realize that, all right, it's either now or never. Melissa, you got to go in, like all in on this business if you want to literally start your own company. So that's what I did in 2019 and have scaled the business to where it is now. So it's kind of crazy where we are now. We're now here today, like 4 years after, I gave birth to Maddie. So but yeah, I love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I totally am like a digital marketing, like obsessed person. So even though I don't have like an educational background in it, like I have just learned from experience and literally doing the work. So, but I thoroughly love it. And I could probably talk about marketing all day.
Which I love too, because if I remember correctly on your website, you actually also have a whole team right now, and you've worked with like some really big brands just like in your time and owning your own agency. So you've gone pretty far.
Yeah, crazy. I think just being exposed to like the online world, like online education, right? Like courses and like webinars are just they have blown up in the last 3 to 5 years. So in this space and just like meeting people in person at like conferences and stuff, I feel like that's just how I've just connected and networked and, found my clients just from like Instagram and referrals. Like that is a huge part of my business. So
At what point were you like, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. I know I didn't technically go to school for this, but this
Mhm.
is like where I'm going to take my career.
Yeah, I think in that very first year of business, I mean, I wasn't in 2019, I started at around April, May ish. But towards the end of that year, I had gone to a conference, I've met with some people, networked online, and I felt like my business was really starting to like take off. And I was like, wow, there's really no turning back now. Like,
Yeah.
I have major goals to hit, and this is definitely not something that I was just dabbling in, right? Like I was literally I went all in. And I'm very lucky. I have a very supportive husband. He's also in the military. So that makes it kind of hard, right? To always be
Mhm.
moving. So I knew also too that like this was the perfect fit because it was something I could do from home. I could literally work on my own schedule. And if we had to move for whatever reason again, I wouldn't have to be like starting from scratch. So that definitely was like, I was super intrigued by that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that first, like towards the end of the year, I was like, wow, I literally made, um, like $60,000 that year in my business. And in my previous salary was like 40,000. So I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I think I'm onto something here. I have
Mhm.
literally made more than my previous like 9 to 5 in only about, I think it was like a 10-month span. So yeah, I was like, this is something I'm going to keep doing.
I love that because that's also why a lot of people want to go into entrepreneurship, right? Is they want this to have that financial freedom, and you kind of don't. There almost is no limit to how far you could take it. It's as much as like you put in and as much as you can get out of it, but like it could be, like better than you ever thought.
Yeah, yeah. I will say that it was, I mean, obviously it's hard, right? Being an
Hmm.
entrepreneur is hard. There's a lot of like self-doubt and like imposter syndrome that you have to overcome. And it's kind of lonely, right? Like you're usually working by yourself at home, no coworkers next to you. And unless you invest in like a mentor or some sort of like mastermind, there really is no community. So you kind of have to take it upon yourself. Like, all right, let me find my community. Let's connect with people in person. I think that's why the conferences that first year, I only went to one, but I think I went to another one at probably a few months later in January. But like those really just kind of like lit me up a bit again, right? Like you hear like success stories on stage, or you meet people in person, you hear about their business and how it's grown, and it's just like it's inspiring, right? So I felt like conferences and in-person events were really important. Just being an entrepreneur, you need to connect with people in person.
Yeah, that's actually a good point to bring up because I mean, that's a big reason why we even have this podcast is like there's people out there who don't have that community yet, or, they don't know that they should have a community and they are dealing with imposter syndrome or they're dealing with some of the stresses of being an entrepreneur on their own. So, before you found that community, how were you? I guess, like, what was that moment where you were like, okay, I feel a little weird. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I need to do something, right? Like I need to like find someone to talk to about this who gets it.
Yeah, I think honestly, it was just a lot of people that I connected with on Instagram. I knew that they were going to this one specific conference, and I was like, all right, I
Oh,
am
cool.
feeling FOMO. Like, I really want to connect with these people in person. So it's just like so cool to just, talk to them in person, be like, oh my God, I follow you. Like, you're on social media. And like, I'd be back and forth, like, all right, yes, I know you too. Yeah. So it's just like lovely to just connect with them and, just like talk about business.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it's also nice because I don't know, I think like something that I heard recently was just how some people are a little worried of hearing other people's success stories because then they feel like, I guess it's sort of a competition, or they're kind of like, oh God, like maybe imposter syndrome will make it worse. So, like, how do you kind of keep that as a networking experience versus letting it kind of consume you in a negative way?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. And especially just in the online space, it's like there's always going to be this sort of like comparison that you feel compelled to like compare yourself and your business to this person. But I look at it as a means of like, all right, if they can do it, like I can do it too, right? And it kind of depends on who you follow too. If somebody's making you feel like crap about yourself or your business or where you are or where you should be, like, hey, you should be at this point, you know, at X amount of months into your business, like honestly, just unfollow them because if someone's just making you feel crappy about yourself, that's probably not the person to be following on social media. So one, I do think it depends on like the type of person that you're following. Like these people that you do aspire and look up to, they should make you feel good about your business, like, and also that it is possible and it's more inspiring versus like you suck sort of thing.
Which is so funny because I feel like for a while that was a big thing online, right? That kind of sales tactic of like, hey, I'm telling you what you're doing wrong right now because you should be like in this space. And if you're not in that space, you need to come talk to me and I will tell you how to get there, but
Mm,
for a fee or like for a price. Whereas everybody's timeline is kind of different. And it really just kind of also even depends on the industry, depends on
okay.
your audience. And like it could take, a few months, it could take a year or so, but your journey is different and that doesn't make it less valid, basically.
Right, right. Yeah, so true. I think there's like a lot of pressure today, like on the online space, especially because, well, one, I'm over 30, and most of these other entrepreneurs that are like popping up and getting huge, they're in their 20s. So I definitely feel like, all right, am I too old to be doing this? But and in all honesty, I think like that's kind of like what has benefited me. Like there's something about like passing the age of 30 where you just like don't care as much about what other people think. So that's probably like in its benefit to me, and having a family and having, that support system on that end really truly does help, and
Mhm.
almost acts as a distraction. um, I think also the fact that my husband has like not an actual civilian job, but like he does have a job where he leaves and he comes back is totally different than what I do. It kind
Mhm.
of like sometimes he brings me back down to like reality and like, outside of the online space. So that's also good to have too. It's like support system at home, staying grounded, and yeah, really just, get off social media if you need to just kind of like do a little detax if
Right,
you're
like actually, yeah, like turn it off at some point and remember to come back into the real world.
Yes, yes, yes. Everything is pretty much it's a highlight reel,
Yeah.
on social media. So, I mean, I don't share nearly, I mean, half of the things that actually happen in real life. It's like always bits and pieces of like the highlights, but I do try to make it a point to share like the lows. And I think that's what, just attracts people to,
Mhm.
your Instagram or like your social media accounts. Like if you can be relatable, authentic, like people want to feel connected to an actual human being versus someone who's just kind of like showing up to show all the like the good things that happen and only the good things, not just the bad. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember you saying earlier that you kind of got into this because you started going into like the fitness space online and that's where you kind of started learning how to do this stuff. So, you know, coming from, not a business background, you didn't go to school for business. How did you actually find the right resources? And, you know, how did you figure out, okay, this is working? Like, this is something that's actually working versus, maybe something that's not working?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I mean, scouring the internet for like free resources, which I think everybody does in their first year of business. But I did actually invest in a mentor probably 5 months into my business because I just knew like I couldn't get to where I wanted to be without that extra help. So honestly, and I've always invested in mentors and coaches and people have just like they're at that point or the space that I want to be in. It's like they've done it. I know that they have true like experiences where they can give me some like sound advice and strategic, just like, here's what you need to do next sort of thing. Yeah. So I think it's just knowing that like, hey, we can't get there alone. You need to invest in like either a team, B yourself, or C like a mentor. So
I love that. And you also said too, like you were a stay-at-home mom, so you have kids or a kid, but how are you able to kind of, you know, run a business, but also have kids to think about, right? Like, okay, like I'm not sure, is she in school or, but like, okay, like I want to start this business and it takes a lot of time, but I also have little humans to think about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. To all the moms out there, I will just say, like, one, give yourself grace, and two, ask for help. I mean, I can't say like how many times I like just, I asked for help. Like I know I can't do it all by myself. I am lucky that she's a little bit older now. So she's 4. So she
Mhm.
is in preschool. Prior to
Very
preschool
nice.
was daycare. Yeah. But I do think it's great for her to actually go to daycare and interact with other kids her age. She's the only child and we don't have any family nearby. So it's really like leaning on like help. So babysitters, and especially during COVID, I
Hmm.
hired a babysitter for sure. So yeah, everything was like shut down, and my husband was home for quite a few months, and he was doing daddy daycare. But after that, I was like, all right, we need a babysitter, especially when he had to go into work.
Hmm.
Um, and then finally, the schools started opening back up. But gosh, they've been a lifesaver for sure. Help.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, right? That was pretty crazy. That whole all last year was just kind of wild, but a
Yeah,
whole
I
different
think it
world.
tested everybody. And I mean, my business boomed from COVID, but it really did test like so many aspects of like business and personal life for sure. Because they all had to like mesh and interact at one point, and it's like, oh my gosh, can we just go back to the way it was?
Yeah, it was pretty wild because I think everybody moved into the online space, or like a lot of people who were sort of brick and mortar were like, well, I mean, online's our only option right now. And so, yeah, I totally get what you mean, like where it boomed and anyone who was already in the online space, you're like, oh, this is kind of awesome, even though this is a really crappy, like global situation. But I mean, it is what it is, right? And it was like, had its like goods and bads. But I guess from here, like what I was wondering and what came to mind is, you have a whole agency now and you have a whole team. So, what were I mean, I'm assuming it didn't happen overnight, but how did you kind of get to that place of like, okay, now I'm finally at a spot in my business where it's a lot for me to handle on my own and it'll be more efficient if I hire on other people? And how did you go about doing that?
Yeah. So such a good question. So in that like past the first year mark of my business, so like the 1 year mark, I would say probably about like 14 months into business, like I just like I told you last year, COVID, like it just boomed. My business boomed. So the amount of clients I was overwhelmed, right? So I kind of felt like how I felt like at the other agency I used to work at. I just had too many clients. And I knew just from like my prior past experience of working at another agency, I can only take on so many clients myself. Like, yes, I still outsource like the images because I'm definitely not a professional graphic designer. So I'm all for outsourcing, what you're not skilled at professionally, like definitely outsource that. What doesn't serve you, outsource. That's a great saying. But yeah, I just had too many clients that I was feeling overwhelmed. I was working at night on the weekends. Even my husband will tell you, like, Melissa's working way too much. I knew I had to hire somebody, but like it scared the living crap out of me to know that I was going to need to pay somebody a full-time salary, right? But I was like, I knew where I wanted to get to. Like I wanted to scale the agency, and I was like, I can't do that unless I hire help, right?
Hmm.
So yeah. And just to take the load off of myself, now I'm kind of basically just like a strategist, like a high level strategist. Whereas I have like team members now that help actually do and implement, the back end work inside of Ads Manager. So it just so much smoother now. I have more like free time, if that makes sense. To do things like this, get on interviews. Prior, I just felt like I was so busy that I just turned so many things down. I was like, I just don't have time to get on calls. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. And
Mhm.
for everyone who is listening, what are, I guess, like something that comes to mind from that is How do you like you take this business, right? And you've worked on it for X amount of years or like however long, and now it's kind of your baby. How do you kind of let go of that and put it into like part of it into the hands of someone else and making sure like, oh, it's going to be of the same quality, of the same like, true to my brand and what I've built already?
Yeah. Lots of like lessons learned hiring, going through that hiring process and like interviewing people. But I really do think systems like have to be in place on the back end of your business. If you don't have like some sort of like onboarding system, internally we were using Asana. We recently moved to ClickUp, but my whole like onboarding, I have like a template essentially for each individual employee that I hire. So like it's outlined by the first 90 days. So like kind of breaks it down by the first week and then the first 2 weeks and then like the first 30 days and then 60 and 90. So like there's certain like milestones and check marks that they're going to have to, make sure they complete. But also I do have an onboarding like training portal. So it's like videos that I've recorded and they're just housed in there. So that way it's just like a smooth process, right? When you hire that first person, they know exactly what they need to complete via the ClickUp template where it's like outlined exactly what they need to do. And they're also learning and, learning all the like different softwares and platforms and just like the system and the process of like how we onboard clients, what they're supposed to be doing daily, weekly. I think all of that back end stuff is really important for like having a smooth like team that literally can run without you. That's like the ultimate goal. So you can
Right.
go on
Right.
vacation. You don't want to have to be like chained to your desk and your computer all the time, especially as a CEO.
And what are some of the ways, I guess, you could make sure, like, okay, I don't want to be a micromanager, but I also want to make sure it's done the way I guess, like, I want it to be done. But yeah, like, how do you just work through that? And how do you actually, I guess, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Like, how does it actually happen? I guess you could say.
Yeah. So the training is going to be super helpful if you have like a certain way or a certain process of doing things. I'm definitely not overbearing, or at least I don't try to be. And I don't like to micromanage because I feel like your employees will just feel like they're walking on eggshells, around you, or they're scared to mess up. So encourage mistakes, right? We can all learn from our mistakes. But if somebody, say they did something wrong or they did something a different way than I would, I just try to communicate that as much as possible. Like, okay, well, how do you want it done, Melissa? Do you need to make an extra training on this? Maybe I wasn't clear, right? So just kind of like self-reflect a little bit before you like jump the gun and be like, all right, you did this wrong. Yeah. So yeah, take it as a teaching moment. It could be something that you could enhance on your end on like the training side. Yeah, or just like setting up like SOPs, the standard operating procedures. So they know exactly like, all right, this is how you want to do it. Like make sure you tell them and you explain that to
hmm
them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you said that it's nice because now you kind of have more free time, but now that you're in this space of, okay, I have a system, it can run even if I'm not here, but do you still experience that entrepreneurial burnout that a lot of people experience when they're just kind of running everything on their own?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely like the solopreneur. And I mean, if you're experiencing burnout right now and you don't have a team, it's probably a sign that you do need to hire somebody, right? You do need to
Mhm.
outsource. It may not be a full time person, probably right off the bat, because that's not what I did. I definitely outsourced like, bits and pieces to specialists, or I hired like part time people in the very beginning. A VA would be a great start, right? A virtual assistant, someone to help you literally do like the mundane like tasks that you hate doing or whatever you don't love. It's probably a sign like that you probably have to like hire somebody to take over that those tasks that like you just hate. Yeah. But someone out there loves
Yeah,
it.
it's really interesting too because I mean, I myself, like, I mean, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I do work at a startup company. And when you're in a startup, even if there's other employees, and it's a small team, like you're still wearing multiple hats. But I used to think like, oh my God, like if I can't do all of these and they start to like offboard, different types of responsibilities off of me, that means that I'm not doing my job. Whereas it's quite the opposite. It's actually like means you're growing and it means you are doing something right to where you can pass it off to somebody.
Mhm.
But, it is hard to it's hard to think that way at first because you think, oh no, like I can't do this job. That means I'm doing something wrong. But quite the contrary, right?
Yeah, it probably just means that they've freed up some sort of like revenue to
Mhm.
hire somebody else, right? Or they have grown to like the next level where they're able to hire like a specialist or maybe a dedicated job position for that one particular task or project instead of like you said, as a startup, it's kind of like you're wearing multiple hats and you're doing all the things.
Mhm.
So that's probably a good thing. It means that like the company is moving, they're progressing and they're moving into like that next level where they can hire more people to take on, specific projects and specific roles. So
Right, right. So before you were able to actually hire on, or before you actually did hire someone on, what were some of the ways that you just were like, okay, I realize needs to happen, but it's hard finding people, right? Like that also takes time. Plus, your business needs to continue running. And if you are kind of reaching this point where you're like just so tired, like what are some things that you would do yourself so that way you could like relax and actually, not overtire yourself?
yeah, so I had a virtual assistant in the very beginning, worked very part-time, like maybe 5-10 hours a week. And that was just helping with like the social media side. And as I grew, then it became more of like an administrative type of role, but also the role still includes social media because it is a large task to do. I still love writing my own captions. Like my assistant will come up with it. And then I'll rewrite it if it needs to be rewritten. But I'm a huge fan of like repurposing too. But yeah, it could literally just be as simple as like hiring out like a position for 5 to 10 hours a week, or just hiring like a contractor to come into your business, someone that's specialized, versus like you spending an hour on one image. You can hire out someone and they can literally do it in half the time or less.
Yeah. And it's like this is something that they do. So
Yeah, it's
they'll get it
saving
done quicker.
you. Yeah, like time is money, especially in your business. If you're afraid to spend money and pay someone who is like specialized in a specific skill, yeah, I just challenge you to like rethink that, like reframe your thinking process. Like it's not an expense, it's an investment in your business in order for you to grow and scale and get to where you want to be.
I love that because perspective is everything, especially if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like you could look at something a certain way and maybe it seems a little bit negative, but like you said, like if you reframe that thinking, it's actually a really positive thing and you can scale faster or you can actually scale versus being stagnant in your business.
Yes, exactly. So instead of you taking an hour out of your day to work on an image, you can literally do some income producing like activities or tasks in your business that actually drive leads and sales, to grow your business and increase revenue. So
When you do have other people on your team, are you usually in the same time zone or do you outsource out, like in other countries? How do you manage, you know, your day to day if you're not in the same time zone?
Slack is definitely a software that we use all the time. I don't know if you guys use Slack at your company, but it's
Mhm.
just like an internal communication software where we can chat with each other in real time and send files. I will also say that like having regular check-ins with your team is really important. So like we have a weekly team meeting on Mondays, and then I individually meet with all of my team members on Friday. Not really so contractors, but like people that are, full-time and part-time as like an employee for Litchfield Media. And then I will also say, like, as time has gone on and I've grown this business, I've just learned that like I do prefer people who are on the same time zone, or at least in North
Mhm.
America. It just makes it very challenging to communicate, especially if you're on like opposite time zones. Like I did have somebody that was living in like Dubai. So it was like literally during the day for me, but at night for her. But she was willing to work at night. So I think she preferred that. But yeah, I think it's kind of depends on your preference. But yeah, mostly everybody now is in the US, but I have had employees all over the world prior.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm sure that's really difficult. I mean, even for me, like we have a big customer base in Australia, and I love them over there. They're super nice, but it is kind of funny because I know exactly, I know like where they're at because they're like, that's too early for me. And I'm like, okay, you're on the other side of the world. So I do need to like schedule this like a little later in the day. And,
Yeah.
every one off is fine. Where like, okay, like I could work a little bit later to do this, but I could see how like if you're the one running it, it's a little bit harder if, you also have to get other stuff done and somebody is on the other side of the world and they have like their own responsibilities that they have to do in terms of this. So that's wild.
Yeah, yeah, especially if you want to have like a dedicated set time where you're working, having to meet with somebody at night is just really not conducive for my lifestyle, only because like I have a family, and I want to be able to spend time with them like after 5. I
Right.
want to be on calls like, during dinner or after dinner. So yeah, just prefer like North America. But yeah, everyone's different. And honestly, do whatever works best for you.
Right. So, kind of something that I was just thinking of that came to mind is I know you mentioned that you actually went to school for criminology and or was it criminal justice? Did I get that wrong?
Very similar. Yeah,
It's very
criminology.
similar. Do
I'm sure.
you ever, right? Do you ever think back to like maybe doing something still in that same, I guess, like industry, but also still being an entrepreneur? I don't even know if that's a thing, but yeah, like, do you ever think back to like, oh, okay, like this is what I used to do, it's what I wanted to do, and maybe I miss it?
Um, no, not really. I mean, never really got an actual position related to criminology. I did in the public health world. I still am like great friends with the people and the old coworkers that I used to work with at the nonprofit. I used to work at a nonprofit in New Orleans, downtown New Orleans. But no, I'm actually really happy where I am. So definitely no regrets. I feel like all of those experiences like led up to where I am now. Like even though I'm not educationally like trained and have a background or like a degree in marketing, I have the experience and literally have the proof. It's like, hey, I'm
Right.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought of it because I was thinking like for someone who's maybe thinking about starting a business, right? But they are in a similar situation where they're like, this is totally different from entrepreneurship or even having like an online business. What are some of the ways that I guess, or like, how do you work through that kind of thought process of, all right, I want to actually do this and it's something that I'm going to pursue?
Yeah, I think most people probably have some sort of side hustle like on the side already. And like they know they're great at it, they have the skill. It's just a matter of like making sure they have like the means to like quit their jobs. So, like, maybe that means like having X amount of clients already like under your belt. You can like make ends meet. So I know like some people will say like just quit, just do it. But I know that's not the like situation or reality for every single person. So make sure one, you have enough money saved up to like pay your bills or enough clients, at the moment to like make ends meet. But yeah, I would say most people probably have some already like not established side hustle, but like they have like they're doing it on the side already. So I know photographers do that a lot. Like they may be working like full time at their 9 to 5, but then they also do photography on the side. So like if you're feeling that draw to like start your own business, it probably means you need to do it. Like if you keep thinking about it, it's probably a sign that like your heart is being pulled in a different direction. And that's not this. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with leaving your 9 to 5 or like feeling like you've wasted your degree, because I've gotten that from family members too. So it's all good.
How do you actually work through that sort of hump of like, oh God, like what if it doesn't work out?
I think that's a valid fear, right? And you kind of have to like ask yourself, like, but what if it does? What
I
if
love
it does?
that.
But like, yeah, well, like think about it. Like, what are all the what are really the factors that could go potentially wrong? Are you going to die? No. But I think we're so afraid of failure because of what others will think of yourself. So it kind of, I think you might have to do some like self-reflection there. Are you just afraid of what others will think of you because you failed, or you're actually really afraid of failing? But that doesn't mean like you can't start up again and try again. It's not the end all be all.
Right, right. Oh, but I love that though, because I mean, it just kind of goes back to what we said earlier, where like framing your perspective and having like a different mindset can actually, it can actually help you, and it can help you actually get over those kind of self thoughts of, oh my God, should I actually do this? Or like, oh my God, what am I doing? And
Yeah.
so on.
There's so many failures that you're probably going to experience as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. I mean, I didn't really talk about all the other failures, but like I did try like health and fitness. I failed at that. I did try the consulting on the side. I quit and I literally got another 9 to 5. So, I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to fail. Doesn't mean that like you're a complete failure, you suck and you can't try again. So,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, we're coming up on time, and I do have my last couple of questions that I like to wrap up with if you're up for
yeah.
it.
Yes.
So, what are three things that most people would not know about you?
Okay, so I love tap dancing. I grew
Oh,
up
awesome.
going to tap, jazz, and ballet, but like tap was my favorite. So I still have tap shoes in my closet that I'll whip out every now and then. I'm allergic to cats. That's another one.
Whoa.
Yeah, allergic to cats. We don't have any pets, but yeah, that cats are a no-go. And then I actually met my husband when I was 15. So we've been dating
Whoa.
ever since. Yeah, we've been together ever since. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow. That's awesome. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. So, my last question for you is just if you could give yourself a single piece of advice at the start of it all, what would it be?
Just keep going. Keep
Oh, I
going.
love that.
Yeah,
I
just
love
keep
that.
going.
I love that a lot. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being on our show with us today. Can you let everyone know where they can find you online?
Yes. So my handle on Instagram is Litchfield Media. Same with Clubhouse. I'm usually on there a couple of times a week hosting rooms. And then litchfieldmedia.org is our website.
You can also actually find Melissa on our consultants page at trainwreck.com/consultants, and she's up there.
Yay. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And we'll also link her stuff in the descriptions per usual. So you guys can find that there if you are either listening to this on our site or looking at the description on any of the streaming services. But thanks again for listening, guys, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.